Hello. My background is in interaction design, and I used to talk about interactive interfaces, digital things, but in this situation it was really a good opportunity for me to prepare something that can tell the journey I had in the relationship with the natural environment. So was really a shifting of perspective for me to analyze, to see not just people behavior anymore or needs, but the nature and the story, the value around. So to consider the nature like a really living creature with a lot of knowledge inside. And I think that it's very important to build the awareness in the relationship, in the connection we always had with nature. And so what is a connection? Is really a bundle of subjective feeling. So the entry point of this connection could be really different. Maybe material, or maybe experiential, or emotional, or can be also spiritual. So nature gives us a lot of life practically, the food for the animals, and medicine, and they inspire almost everything around us. So how can be inspired also what around? So this is a definition of Maldonado I found really interesting. So Maldonado in this book, it's Design, Nature and Revolution, says that our relationship with the environment in which we live is comparable to the relationship between a container and its contents, each of which has developed independently of the other. So our is a relationship of correspondence can turn out to be substantially negative for us and the environment. So we are part of the system, of course, and probably without the plants we cannot live. Humans are just the 0.3% of the species in the world, and without us, probably in few time all the plants will invade everything. So you can see also there are some carts inside the Madeira abandoned, but it's beautiful to see how fast the nature grows, especially here. So because of this relationship, we can become active and creative, and a creative part of this reality we are going to create. So, but how? So now it's my journey to explore how we can do it. Maybe started in Hawaii, and I found really a nice example of how they are really closer to the nature. This is like a celebration and care of the nature. It's called Lahau Lahapau. That is not just herbalism, but really is a spiritual basic way of the life. So Hawaiians consider the plants as living entities with innate intelligence. So this is why they also ask permission for harvest, for instance, and after also say thank you to the nature that gives them everything. And this is an example because also there it's really an island very separated from the rest of the world. So they live really closely. And this is in particular Kalo farm. Kalo is taro. And they really care about taro because in their legend they are like born under taro. So it's very important for them to keep it grow. But it's a chrome, so it's not the propagation is not by seed, so it's very difficult. So it is a knowledge that they pass generation by generation. And the new farmers are also young, very young, and they have a really mission to perpetuate, enhance, and preserve the Hawaiian tradition and reconnected people with the land. They do also a lot of communication and campaign about this. And also, if this plant is not really native of Hawaii, of course, but comes from Asia. So yes, from Japan and Polynesia, and after Hawaii 15,000 of years ago. And so they are not really farmers, but they are called gardeners, because they, like Madeira, there are not so many animals there. But the connection with the nature is not really just this, but they use a lot of other materials. For instance, the pumpkins, that is the same probably also in Portugal, because they are, this knowledge of creating things with pumpkins maybe comes from Portugal, because pumpkins is like waterproof, so really isolated. So then the sailors used them for bringing water and liquids. And in Hawaii they used pumpkins for making the pau, that is the drums for traditional dance. And they do also like the dresses and everything with the leaves, and they still make this by their home. And another interesting things that on that is like the banyan tree. The banyan tree that is practically is Ficus bengalese. So from the name you can understand that the ficus is not Hawaiian, but is Indian. And it is very, very big. It's the biggest there. And they also organize some markets behind every week, and it's very celebrated. It was planted at the end of, in 1820 for the celebrating the Protestant missionary there, Indian. And this is the shape. Is also was also organized with the help of the Chinese community that lived there, and they hung the lantern with water to make this shape very symmetrical. So also it's like a design with humans in some way. And they celebrate also the anniversary, so the birthday of the tree every year, and it's protected, so they are creating space to make it growing. And it's also a very, very old tree. Is protected in India, and the biggest is 1.9 hectare of the diameter, so they can shade 20,000 of people behind. Now, very interesting things, very contemporary, is what is happening in Mauna Kea. That is the volcano they have, like Madeira, of course, is volcanic. It's not really a protest, but it's protection of the land, because they want to build a telescope, 30 meters of telescope, so it's very, very large. But for them, Mauna Kea is very important, because it's like the connection with their ancestor. So they are playing, they are dancing, they are just staying there to protect the place. And this is inspiring, because you see what we do every day to protect our land. not to change the tradition, to making things alive, and also the scientists are signing the petition and making some movement. So we don't know at the end it's ongoing situation, but it's very inspiring, and so it's really a link. There is a link between the plants and culture, and probably there are also some culture of the Portuguese there in Hawaii, because the missionary from England moved like 50,000 Portuguese in Hawaii for working in the sugarcane plantations. So a lot of knowledge about the care of the plants comes also from the contamination with Portuguese, and this is very interesting combination, I think. And yeah, from Madeira and Azore. So how we can after this trip back to Mediterranean, I asked myself, so how I can, what I can do, because we have a lot of knowledge about also the contamination about Arabic and all the Mediterranean countries, and also Madeira is considered like Mediterranean also. Little bit. So and there is a really big variety of biodiversity here in all the Mediterranean area. 25,000 species compared to just 6,000 in the rest of the world. And so there is a phrase that say doing what you can with what we have. So it's a good point to start. So looking around and understanding what is around us. As a designer, I'm not really in the natural things. So we cannot see and know everything. And maybe asking ourselves what is behind a plant, what is behind a thing, can help also to understand the culture and the use of this. And so endemic is like native and restricted to a certain place. It's like the Forbia piscatora we saw yesterday. There is just in Madeira and in Porto Santo. Or there is an indigenous that can be native, but not. But they evolved in a particular area, like the ice plants that are not just there, and we have alien invasive species that are not just plants but also animal, like goats, for instance. And generally they arrive without a predator, and so can be really dangerous. Because they have advantage over the other species around. There is like a lot of movement around the wild plants now, because the wild plants are like the ancestor of the domesticated plants we have, and we cultivate for food, medicine, and industrial purpose. So there is a lot of genetic diversity. And instead, pioneer species are really the first that can colonize a new area. This is the experience I had in Spain. So we planted 5,000 of trees we did a study about the trees that were in the area, and it was really very hard to keep them alive at the beginning, and without any chemical things, of course. But it's interesting to see which one stay, which one die, and how they help each other. So how we can cooperate with the nature, because the important factor is that things change together with our design. Yes, Alistair said also a lot of this. So maybe created a self-regulation system can help. So a system can also continue alone, or cannot can create something after. So to be an example, probably you know this, that is Madeira is full on some parts, and yes, it's not. This image say that it's not easy to do to design with the nature, because sometimes it's very strong, it's very hard. The seeds of the Genista are really difficult to be destroyed, because they can resist also the fire, and there is a lot of fire around, so they're the only one that can resist that. So the weeds invasion can really change the diversity of the nature. But also Genista, it's very old also plant, and it's called the bloom because in the past they were used for creating swipe. Yes. So there is a use of Genista too. It's in the 50th century, and it's Mediterranean, and it comes from the Europe, Africa, and the Canary Islands. Another plant, interesting plant, invasive, is the wildplant, the avena. We see also, and it's avena sativa. So the name say that it's very important, very it can be used also as a medical purpose, especially for the skin. And there are seeds that are in the hair, so it's very easy to grow. It's a really invasive plant, but there is an herbalist that tried to use it in another way. So just cutting machine, trying to apply the knowledge we have to make paper in this area, and so it's really, this is, I think, an example of design that produce also something that can also come back to the land in some way, because totally biodegradable. And another one that I love, and probably you have a lot here, is that Taraxacum. That is also an officinal plant, a medical plant. So it's really old. Like 30 million ago, they found a fossil in Russia with a Taraxacum. So it's very old and important. And so that usually they are very small, and like in 10 years they can become like this, so 50 centimeter. But here you can find really huge Taraxacum, so like high like me, and with the flowers are like that. So it's very it's interesting. I don't know why it's so big. Maybe we can ask the expert the next days. but it's like an adaptation of the dandelion. It's just there, and when you walk, you don't know what is behind. So I think it's very important also to preserve these plants, because you can do really a lot of things. It's very curative also for the liver, for everything. There is also an artist that did different experimentation, so also new material with this plant. And dandelion was moved into the North America with the sheep by English people, because their wish was to create their own place, to have something that can remind them their home when they moved to America. So it's very also important for cultural reason. So I started to question, there are a lot of knowledge around, but how I can read it as a designer without using or be lost into the tool of the ecologist, or very, very technical. How can I bring also the culture and the emotion there? So there are, along the way, I found different methods. Like one is the Rhabdomancy, that is very old. Also, it's like a divination practice. They use this stick to look for water, basically. And so it's like very close to what we do today with the GPS. we are moving and looking for things. It's like using another sense, because they use it to feel the body as guide for the path. Another is like fairy, that is maybe a term. The term was invented by Baudelaire, and so it's a practice of strolling or really wandering around with the nose to the hair, because it's like help to see things in a different way. So they have no really a clear path to or an ending point. They just feel around. So there is a nice book, it's from Robert Balzer. It's called Walking, and La passeggiata in italiano. And the passeggio. And this is a practice you can do to see things really like new the first time, not just things around, but also people moving and following, and feel the sensation in yourself. Maybe more recent is psychogeography, so it's like all the methods you can try every day. And with psychogeography is a study, is a kind of storytelling, creating things by feeling our emotion, so feeling how things outside can impress our emotions and our sense. So it's like a meditative practice. You can go around, and instead of just looking, really to feel and to dedicate the time to perceive, to maybe also give a name to an emotion. And it was very powerful for me, the walk yesterday. So I tried to do this. So take a note about your emotions, and maybe after look for a metaphor, look for a story, a different story that can also express your feeling. So in that way, you can also analyze if the place is like make you happy or not. So you can modify things and maybe are not good. So you can try also with your working place or other. There are also more analytical things to do the analysis before from the permaculture approach. I found this that maybe is what inspired me to transform the approach into the vocabulary I can understand. So being in a sort of passive, we cannot like create really from the top because the nature change, and there is not just the shape of things, but there is a lot of things around, like climate, the story, and everything. So the map is not really the land. You can create a new map, and to create the diversity. I can share the presentation after. You can be lost into all the method, the tool they create for the analysis. Just feel yourself what is the best for you to use for this analysis. So it's just some approaches I found on the way that maybe can come all together in some way. So permaculture, that is not just taking care of the land, but also is thinking about fair share, new business, new work, sharing the work, and also care about the people, education, community. So it's really like lifestyle. Interesting also the food forest, the food garden, that is like coming back to the origin, so create different levels also in the nature to make things helping each other. So you can plant like a bean that can shade the almond or the oak. So it's not a fixed design that you can do just at the beginning, but it's really a project in progress. You don't know at the end who will survive. So it's like you can have an idea, but just thinking and allowing difference to go together. And they do also permaculture for the underwater. Wow. And syntropic agriculture. Also interesting, and it was invented by a Swiss guy that moved into Brazil to try and to grow things. And the idea is to plant a lot of things every 10 centimeter, and different kind, also medicinal herbs with acacia or very big plant, and see what emerge. A website can be inspiring. Is Ask Nature, is the mimicry approach to see the nature as a model for the shape, for their function, for their reaction. Everything like inspired from the nature can inspire new design. So also it's a good way to think about sustainable business idea. And another movement very powerful is the seed saving, and to preserve also the culture of and the biodiversity around the world. There is a nice project, the Seeds Journey. So researcher, artists, and different kind of people just explored and did the same route of the past, and they on the way stopped and created some workshop and event to involve the local community and sharing seeds and to create awareness. There is a piece of art, agroecology, that we learned also before. We can do something really every day in our life. We have not to change the world in some way, and also start from a little with the experiment, because it can make the difference when it's spread out into the society. So this is a compost toilet outside in Spain. It's a really desertic area, so they have a problem of the water, so they decided to use this. It's a very simple thing, and I want to do it in my house too. So they use just sawdust inside, and then they store it for 6 months outside, and it's really a nutrient for the plants. So after 6 months, they move it into the olive grove they have. And so we started to do every week some tour with the visitors there, and they used it a lot after knowing this, and they were very proud to share their thing and to nurture the land. So everything we produce in some way can be also be precious for the land, and this changed something. We use also the basket to collect the water, like for the shower just before. It's like what we saw in the movie. Also Lourdes washed their hand outside, and then just reverse the water in the plant. So it's kind of reusing, recycling, and reducing the waste too. And there are also a lot of movement for the communication side, and to involve people to feel the tradition. It's the transitionnetwork.org. And this is a group, Pacific Climate Warriors, that are really active in involving people and doing things. And I think also the people that live in the island are really this power to do this. So at the end, yeah, it's the root. So roots are what characterize a tree, and it expresses a tree's behavioral ability to grow, to make the connection, to also compete with other plants around, to collaborate with other organisms like fungi. So what shape your roots have? Do they drive deeply like a plant in the desert, or they extend widely to gather rainwater? So that is in this moment that connect practice with knowledge. Today I'm questioning what tools we can use to negotiate shape and create the design process, really to combine and a good place for us and our neighborhood that are the plants. Thank you.